The Duchy of Bavaria was, from the 6th through the 8th century, a frontier region in the southeastern part of the Merovingian kingdom and was ruled by dukes under Frankish lordship. In the late 9th century a new duchy was created from this area. It was one of the stem duchies of the Kingdom of Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. Between 1070 and 1180 the emperor was opposed by Bavaria, especially by the House of Welf. In the final conflict between the Duke Henry the Lion and the Hohenstaufen Emperor Frederick I, Frederick I triumphed and deprived Henry of his fiefs. Bavaria then passed over to the House of Wittelsbach, which held it until 1918. Older stem duchy. The origins of the older Bavarian duchy can be traced to the year 551–555. In his Getica, the chronicler Jordanus writes, "That area of the Swabians has the Bavariae in the east, the Franks in the west. Until the end of the first duchy, all rulers descended from the family of the Agelolfings. The Bavarians then colonized the area from the march of the Nordgau along the Naab River up to the Enns in the east and southward across the Brenner Pass to the Upper Adige in present-day South Tyrol. The first documented duke was Garibaldi, a scion of the Frankish Agelolfings, who ruled from 555 onward as a largely independent Merovingian vassal. On the eastern border, changes occurred with the departure of the West Germanic Lombard tribes from the Pannonian Basin to northern Italy in 568 and the succession of the Avars, as well as with the settlement of West Slavic Czechs on the adjacent territory beyond the Bohemian Forest at about the same time. At around 743, the Bavarian Duke Odejea vassalized the Slavic princes of Carantania, who had asked him for protection against the invading Avars. The residence of the largely independent Agelolfing dukes was then Regensburg, the former Roman Castra Regina on the Danube River. During Christianization, Bishop Corbinian laid the foundations for the later Diocese of Freising before 724. St. Kilian in the 7th century had been a missionary of the Franconian territory in the north, then ruled by the Dukes of Thuringia, where Boniface founded the Diocese of Wurzburg in 742. In the adjacent Alemannic lands west of the Lech River, Augsburg was a bishop's seat. When Boniface established the Diocese of Passau in 739, he could already build on local early Christian traditions. In the south, St. Rupert had founded in 696 the Diocese of Salzburg, probably after he had baptized Duke Theodore of Bavaria at his court in Regensburg, becoming the Apostle of Bavaria. In 798 Pope Leo III created the Bavarian ecclesiastical province with Salzburg as metropolitan seat and Regensburg, Passau, Freising and Sabern as suffragan dioceses. With the rise of the Frankish Empire under the Carolingian dynasty, the autonomy of the Bavarian dukes under the Merovingians was terminated. In 716 the Carolingians had incorporated the Franconian lands in the north formerly held by the Dukes of Thuringia, whereby the bishops of Wurzburg gained a dominant position. In the west the Carolingian mayor of the palace Carloman, who had suppressed the last Alemannic revolt at the 746 blood court at Cannstatt. The last tribal stem duchy to be incorporated was Bavaria in 788, after Duke Tassilo III had tried in vain to maintain his independence through an alliance with the Lombards. The conquest of the Lombard kingdom by Charlemagne entailed the fall of Tassilo, who was deposed in 788. Bavaria was then administrated by Frankish prefects. Younger stem duchy. In his 817 Ordinatio Imperii, Charlemagne's son and successor Emperor Louis the Pious tried to maintain the unity of the Carolingian Empire, while imperial authority upon his death was to pass to his eldest son Lothair I. The younger brothers were to receive subordinate realms. From 825 Louis the German styled himself King of Bavaria in the territory that was to become the center of his power. When the brothers divided the empire by the 843 Treaty of Verdun, Bavaria became part of East Francia under King Louis the German, who upon his death bequested the Bavarian royal title to his eldest son Carloman in 876. Carloman's natural son Arnulf of Carinthia, raised in the former Carantanian lands, secured possession of the March of Carinthia upon his father's death in 880 and became king of East Francia in 887. Carinthia and Bavaria were the bases of his power, with Regensburg as the seat of his government. Due mainly to the support of the Bavarians, Arnulf could take the field against Charles in 887 and secure his own election as German king in the following year. In 899 Bavaria passed to Louis the Child, during whose reign continuous Hungarian ravages occurred. Resistance to these inroads became gradually feeble, and tradition has it that on the 5th of July 907 almost the whole of the Bavarian tribe perished in the Battle of Pressburg against these formidable enemies. During the reign of Louis the Child, Luitpold, Count of Schern, who possessed large Bavarian domains, ruled the Mark of Carinthia, created on the southeastern frontier for the defense of Bavaria. He died in the Great Battle of 907, but his son Arnulf, surnamed the Bad, rallied the remnants of the tribe in alliance with the Hungarians and became Duke of the Bavarians in 911, uniting Bavaria and Carinthia under his rule. The German king Conrad I unsuccessfully attacked Arnulf when the latter refused to acknowledge his royal supremacy. Luipoldings and Ottonians. The Carolingian reign in East Francia ended in 911 when Arnulf's son, King Louis the Child, died without heirs. The discontinuation of the central authority led to a new strengthening of the German-stemmed duchies. At the same time, East Francia was exposed to the rising threat from Hungarian invasions, especially in the Bavarian March of Austria beyond the Enns River. In 907 the army of Luitpold, Margrave of Bavaria, suffered a crushing defeat at the Battle of Pressburg. Luitpold himself was killed in action and his son Arnulf the Bad assumed the ducal title, becoming the first Duke of Bavaria from the Luipolding dynasty. However, the Austrian March remained occupied by the Hungarians and the Pannonian lands were irrecoverably lost. Nevertheless, the self-confidence of the Bavarian dukes was an ongoing matter of dispute in the newly established Kingdom of Germany. Duke Arnulf's son Eberhard was deposed by King Otto I of Germany in 938. He was succeeded by his younger brother Berthold. In 948, King Otto finally disempowered the Luipoldings and installed his younger brother Henry I as Bavarian Duke. The late Duke Berthold's minor heir, Henry III, was fobbed off with the office of a Bavarian Count Palatine. The last attempt of the Luipoldings to regain power by joining the rebellion of King Otto's son Duke Ludolf of Swabia was crushed in 954. In 952 Duke Henry I also received the Italian March of Verona, which Otto I had seized from King Berengar II of Italy. He still had to deal with the Hungarian threat, which was not eliminated until King Otto's victory at the 955 Battle of Lech fell. The Magyars retreated behind the Leitha and Mirava rivers, facilitating a second wave of German Aussiedlung into the areas of today's Lower Austria, Istria and Carniola. Although ruled by the Ottonian descendants of Henry I, a cadet branch of the Saxon royal dynasty, the conflict of the Bavarian dukes with the German court continued. In 976, Emperor Otto II deposed his rebellious cousin Duke Henry II of Bavaria and established the Duchy of Carinthia on former Bavarian territory granted to the former Luipolding Count Palatine Henry III, who also became Margrave of Verona. Though Henry II reconciled with Emperor Otto's widow Theophanu in 985 and regained his duchy, the power of the Bavarian dukes was further diminished by the rise of the Franconian House of Babenberg, ruling as Margraves of Austria, who became increasingly independent. House of Welf. The last Ottonian Duke, Henry II's son Henry III, was elected King of the Romans in 1002. At different times the duchy was ruled by the German kings in personal union, by dependent dukes, or even by the emperor's sons, a tradition maintained by Henry's Salian successors. This period saw the rise of many aristocratic families, such as the Counts of Andechs of the House of Wittelsbach. In 1061 the Dowager Empress Agnes of Between followed the Saxon Count Otto of Nordheim. Nevertheless, her son King Henry IV again seized the duchy on fallacious grounds, which ultimately led to the Saxon Rebellion of 1073. Henry entrusted Bavaria to Welf, scion of the Veronese Margravial House of Este and progenitor of the Welf dynasty, which intermittently ruled the duchy for the next 110 years. Only with the establishment of Welf rule as dukes from 1070 by Henry IV was there a re-emergence of the Bavarian dukes. This period is characterized by the investiture controversy between emperor and pope. It strengthened Guelph rule through siding with the Pope's position, a conflict with the Swabian dynasty of Hohenstaufen in the election of the king led the discretion of the Hohenstaufen Conrad III to the king, but the fact that Bavaria was given to the Babenbergs 1139. The Swabian area was during the reign of the Staufer king largely countryside. Increasingly, Franconia also became the center of Staufer power. Franken obtained a dominant position of the Bishop of Wurzburg by the founding of the Diocese of Bamberg. The new secular rulers lost 1007. The Hohenstaufen Frederick I Barbarossa attempted reconciliation with the Guelphs and in 1156 gave back the Marcha Orientalis scale to Bavaria. The Guelph Henry the Lion. The detached Marcha Orientalis was the Babenbergs as the new duchy of special privileges to the nucleus of the later Austria. Henry the Lion founded numerous cities, including Munich in 1158. Through his strong position as ruler of the two duchies of Saxony and Bavaria, he came into conflict with Frederick I Barbarossa. With the banishment of Henry the Lion and the separation of Styria as a private duchy in 1180, the younger tribal duchy came to an end. Imperial state. From 1180 to 1918, the Wittelsbachs were the rulers of Bavaria, as dukes, later as electors and kings. When Count Palatine Otto VI of Wittelsbach became Otto I, Duke of Bavaria in 1180, the Wittelsbach treasury was rather low. In the following years it was significantly augmented by purchase, marriage, and inheritance. Newly acquired land was no longer given as a fief, but managed by servants. Also, powerful families, such as the Counts of Andechs, died out during this period. Otto's son Ludwig I of Wittelsbach was involved in 1214 with the county of Palatine of the Rhine. Since there was no preference for succession of the firstborn in the Wittelsbach dynasty, in contrast to many governments of this time, There was in 1255 a division of the land into Upper Bavaria with the Palatinate and the Nordgau and Lower Bavaria. There is still today a distinction made between Upper and Lower Bavaria. Despite renewed division after a short time of reunification, Bavaria gained new heights of power with Louis IV, Holy Roman Emperor, who became the first Wittelsbach Emperor in 1328. The newly gained areas of Brandenburg, Tyrol, the Dutch provinces Holland, Zeeland and Friesland and the Hainaut were, however, lost under his successes. In 1369, Tyrol fell through the Treaty of Verdun to the Habsburgs. The Luxembourgish Ride followed in 1373 and the Dutch counties fell to Burgundy in 1436. In the 1329 Treaty of Pavia, Emperor Louis divided ownership in a Palatine region, with the Rhine Palatinate and a later so-called Upper Palatinate. Thus, the electoral dignity for the line onwards to the Palatinate was also lost. With the recognition of the limits of domination by the Bavarian Duke in the year 1275, Salzburg of Bavaria went into the final phase, when the Salzburg Archbishop issued its own country regulations in 1328. Salzburg became a largely independent state within the Holy Roman Empire. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Upper and Lower Bavaria were repeatedly subdivided. 4 duchies existed after the division of 1392: Lower Bavaria Straubing, Lower Bavaria Landshut, Bavaria Ingolstadt and Bavaria Munich. These dukes often waged war against each other. Duke Albrecht IV of Bavaria Munich united Bavaria in 1503 through primogeniture and war. However, the originally Bavarian offices Kufstein, Kitzbühel and Rattenberg in Tyrol were lost in 1504. In spite of the decree of 1506, Albert's oldest son William IV was compelled to grant a share in the government in 1516 to his brother Louis X, an arrangement which lasted until the death of Louis in 1545. William followed the traditional Wittelsbach policy of opposition to the Habsburgs, until in 1534 he made a treaty at Linz with Ferdinand I, the King of Hungary and Bohemia. This link strengthened in 1546, when the Emperor Charles V obtained the help of the Duke during the War of the League of Schmalkaldum by promising him in certain eventualities the succession to the Bohemian throne, and the electoral dignity enjoyed by the Count Palatine of the Rhine. William also did much at a critical period to secure Bavaria for Catholicism. The Reformed doctrines had made considerable progress in the duchy when the Duke obtained extensive rights over the bishoprics and monasteries from the Pope. He then took measures to repress the reformers, many of whom were banished, while the Jesuits, whom he invited into the duchy in 1541, made the Jesuit College of Ingolstadt the headquarters in Germany. William, whose death occurred in March 1550 and was succeeded by his son Albert V, who had married a daughter of Ferdinand I. Early in his reign Albert made some concessions to the reformers, who were still strong in Bavaria, but about 1563 he changed his attitude, favored the decrees of the Council of Trent, and pressed forward the work of the Counter-Reformation. As education passed by degrees into the hands of the Jesuits, the progress of Protestantism was effectually arrested in Bavaria. The succeeding Duke, Albert's son, William V, had received a Jesuit education and showed keen attachment to Jesuit tenets. He secured the Archbishopric of Cologne for his brother Ernest in 1583, and this dignity remained in the possession of the family for nearly 200 years. In 1597 he abdicated in favor of his son Maximilian I. Maximilian I found the duchy encumbered with debt and filled with disorder, but 10 years of his vigorous rule effected a remarkable change. The finances and the judicial system were reorganized, a class of civil servants and a national militia founded, and several small districts were brought under the Duke's authority. The result was a unity and order in the duchy which enabled Maximilian to play an important part in the 30 Years' War, during the earlier years, of which he was so successful as to acquire the Upper Palatinate and the electoral dignity which had been enjoyed since 1356 by the elder branch of the Wittelsbach family.